The conference room on the 68th floor of Whitmore Tower was a glass and steel cathedral to control. Sleek, minimalist, and painfully precise. Not a fingerprint on the polished black table. Not a misplaced pen. The skyline of Manhattan poured in through floor-to-ceiling windows, making the room feel like it hovered above the world, untouchable. Just the way Nate Whitmore liked it. He checked his watch, again. "She's 7 minutes late," he said. Voice clipped like a scalpel. Around the table, junior executives stiffened in their chairs. No one spoke. A bead of condensation slid down the untouched water carafe at the center of the table. Even that seemed to irritate him. He stood abruptly, adjusting his cufflinks with mechanical precision. They were already perfect, of course. They always were. Everything he touched, ran, owned, perfect, flawless, clean, unlike people. "Remind me," he said, turning toward his assistant without looking at her. "Did I ask to be disrespected today? Or did Dakota Springs just take the liberty?" "She called," the assistant said carefully. "She's in the building. Elevator delay." Nate said nothing. His jaw tightened, a tick in his temple pulsing. He hated late. Late was chaos. Late was weakness. Late was his ex-wife, lying through a smile as she derailed dinner parties and depositions with ease. Late made him feel something he refused to name, unsteady. He walked to the head of the table and stared out the window, fists resting lightly on the table's edge. Behind him, the room was silent except for the subtle whir of central air. And then the elevator dinged, the door opened, and time faltered. Dakota Springs didn't enter. She arrived, tall, lean, and deadly calm. Golden bronze skin that caught the light like burnished armor. A platinum blonde curly twists that defied corporate convention and dared anyone to say a word about it. Her suit was power red, tailored to precision, the kind of fit that spoke fluent intimidation. The white blouse underneath was crisp, offset by a slim red tie peppered in playful white polka dots. Her nails, white, tipped in red polka dots. Her heels, red, bold, with oversized white spots that should have been kitsch, but weren't. Somehow on her, they worked like a battle flag. The room breathed her in. Nate's voice caught in his throat, just for a beat. Barely audible, but he felt it. His fingers twitched toward his cufflinks again. "Apologies," Dakota said, smoothly, placing a folder on the table as she slid into her seat with practiced ease. "Elevators have their own personalities in this building, I see." He turned to face her slowly, eyes narrowing. "Only when they sense arrogance on board," he replied. Dakota smiled, not sweetly, like she'd just pulled the pin on a grenade. "Good thing I came prepared then." Nate sat. The air in the room shifted. Everyone else knew what they were witnessing. This wasn't a meeting. It was the start of a war. The presentation screen displayed the merger proposal in stark white and navy, Whitmore's corporate palette, cool and clinical. Dakota didn't blink. "I've reviewed your offer," she began, flipping through the binder like it bored her. "And while it's aggressive, it's also optimistic. The language around R&D integration leaves my father's IP dangerously exposed." Nate leaned back in his chair, folding his hands loosely. "Optimistic, Miss Springs. Is your father asking for Whitmore capital while pretending his labs don't bleed money quarterly?" Somewhere to Nate's right, a junior exec coughed. Dakota's almond eyes didn't waver. "Our labs don't bleed. They innovate. You're not acquiring a crutch. You're inheriting a future your own R&D division couldn't build if you stapled cash to their lab coats." A pause. Sharp. Measured. Nate's stare drilled into hers. Cold. Calculating. He tilted his head just slightly, studying her like a flaw in an otherwise impressive design. "You talk like a woman who doesn't understand what pressure looks like at scale," he said quietly. "We're not peers, Miss Springs. This isn't law school. This is my legacy. Dakota leaned in, elbows on the table. Her tone didn't change, but something behind her eyes sharpened. "No," she said. "This is risk management, and your legacy, Mr. Whitmore, is only as strong as your ability to adapt. Or do you need a quarterly bloodbath to get your board's attention?" A beat of silence. Someone at the far end of the table shifted in their seat. The energy had changed again. He felt it. She wasn't defending. She was challenging, and she wasn't blinking. Nate exhaled through his nose, nostrils flaring with restrained irritation. Or something worse, something heavier. This wasn't about the proposal anymore. She wasn't intimidated. Not by the suits, not by the view, not by him. He stood, walking slowly toward the window again, his tone suddenly low, clinical. "I don't like being surprised, Miss Springs." Dakota's voice followed him. "That explains the proposal." He turned, lips twitching in something almost like a smirk, but not quite. Just a flicker of a reaction before he buried it under ice. Dakota closed the folder with a soft snap. It was on a Wednesday, 10 a.m. She arrived precisely on time. The elevator opened and Dakota stepped out dressed like the sky after a storm. A slim-cut suit in powder blue with soft edges, a white blouse with a faint shimmer, nails perfectly polished to match. Even her buzz cut was different. Still platinum, but now streaked with pale cobalt, subtle and deliberate. Nate was already standing, waiting. He did not speak. He did not blink. He was undone. Again. What game is she playing? The boardroom air shifted as she entered. This time she didn't drop her binder. She simply smiled, warm but unreadable, and took her seat. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, "all business." "Miss Springs." He sat. The conversation began, clinical as before, but underneath there was heat. Unspoken strategy. Mutual reconnaissance. Dakota laid out her revised terms. Stronger protections. Clearer exit triggers. Flawless. She anticipated every objection, preempted every counter-argument. There was no showboating, no flair, just brilliance. She's not here to charm, Nate realized. She's here to win. Still, he tested her. He pointed out risk models, asked sharp questions buried in legal minutiae, pushed hypothetical timelines, interrupted her mid-sentence, just to watch her recalibrate. She didn't flinch. When he leaned in, she leaned back, perfectly calm. When he pulled back, she leaned in, asking, "What's Whitmore's position on third-party profit sharing from off-label research tied to patient data?" His eyes narrowed. "Ah," he thought, "there it is. You mean the thing we don't talk about at fundraisers? I mean the thing your board will have to defend when it leaks." The room went still. A smile curled at the corner of Nate's mouth. Tightly controlled, almost bitter. "You don't play nice, do you?" Dakota's gaze met his, unbothered. "I don't play at all. I protect what matters." And just like that, something shifted again, a small crack in the surface. Not in her, in him. He saw it now. The drive beneath her polish. The loyalty that made her dangerous. Not just smart, dangerous. And still, no matter how many angles he tried, he couldn't find the weakness. Couldn't find the moment where she second-guessed herself. But she did see something in him. Not pity, not sympathy, just recognition. A man used to winning, but not connecting, and she didn't flinch from it. She saw the wall, and she didn't back away. The restaurant was a low-lit enclave on the Upper East Side. Discreet, elegant, no cameras, no crowds, just white linen, quiet jazz, and the kind of service that anticipated your appetite before you did. Nate Whitmore sat alone at a corner table, a glass of red in hand, untouched. His phone was face down, the menu unopened. He wasn't hungry, he was tired. Not in the body, he kept that sharp, disciplined, but in the mind, in that quiet place behind the eyes, where every deal and every betrayal lived too long. He was thinking about Dakota Springs, which meant, of course, that when he looked up, she was walking in, and not in red. White, head-to-toe white, a tailored cream-white blazer, over silk. Wide-legged trousers that whispered across the floor, and heels that gleamed like bone. Even her nails were a glossy, subtle pearl. The streak of cobalt still touched her hair, but even that felt intentional, like punctuation in an otherwise wordless sentence. She didn't see him at first, but then she did. And she didn't flinch. She came to him. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, standing at his table like she already owned it. "Dakota." His voice came out lower than intended. "You stalking me?" She gave him that sideways smile. "No, but if I was, I'd be better at hiding it." He gestured to the seat across from him. "Join me." "Only," she said, slipping off one glove and setting it on the table, "if we don't talk business." "Deal." "And no exes." He raised an eyebrow. "Even better." She sat. The waiter appeared like a whisper. She ordered a dirty martini. No hesitation. He waited until the server vanished before speaking again. "You always dress like you're sending a message?" Dakota looked around the room, then back at him. "Only to people fluent enough to read it." He chuckled. The sound surprised both of them. "You're good," he said. "I'm necessary," she corrected. Silence, but not empty. Thick, unspoken things coiling under the table like live wire. After a moment, he leaned in slightly. "What are you doing here, Dakota?" "Having a drink." "That's not what I meant." She tilted her head. "You want a real answer or a polite one?" "Always real." She met his eyes, calm and unflinching. "I needed to remind myself that I can choose be who I want to be when I'm in a room with you, not the other way around." That hit him harder than he expected. He looked down, exhaled slowly, and when he looked up, some of the edge had left his posture. "No one talks to me like you do. Most people are afraid of you. And you're not?" "I'm just not impressed by fear." He stared at her, trying to read the undercurrent behind her words. What it cost her to be this composed. What it hid. Who taught her to hold her shoulders like armor? "Do you ever turn it off?" he asked. Dakota took a sip of her martini, then leaned back in her chair, her expression softening, just a fraction. "Do you?" Another silence, heavier now. More honest. The mask slicked. Just enough. And in that moment, sitting across from her, in a place where neither of them had the upper hand, Nate realized something terrifying. He didn't want the next meeting. He wanted the next moment. He walked her to her car in silence. The city around them was quiet, tucked into the kind of late-night lull only Manhattan knew. Elevated, charged, but pretending to sleep. Dakota didn't say much. She didn't have to. Her presence said enough. Graceful, grounded, unbothered. When they reached the curb, she paused, hand on the door. "Good night, Mr. Whitmore." He nodded. "Good night, Miss Springs." She slid inside and was gone. The door clicking shut, like punctuation on a sentence he didn't want to end. He didn't sleep. He lay in the dark, alone in a penthouse filled with silence and success. Glass, leather, stone, everything cold, clean and untouched, just like he liked it. Until recently. Until her. Dakota was in his head, coiled behind every thought, tucked into every pause. The sound of her voice, the cool calm of her eyes, the fact that she never reached for him, never needed to. She had gravity. But his past hovered like smoke. The betrayal of his ex-wife was a phantom limb he still couldn't stop feeling. The lies, the PR fallout, the image of her standing beside his biggest rival, smiling like she hadn't gutted him in private first. He couldn't afford to want again, trust again, love again. Especially not someone as disruptive as Dakota Springs. And yet, the next morning, Nate Whitmore canceled every meeting on his calendar. He told his assistant it was strategy realignment. Truth was, he just needed to see her. Springs Biotech was across the river. Clean, functional, far more modest than Whitmore Tower. It pulsed with quiet activity, the hum of labs and innovation without the gloss of corporate showmanship. He didn't call ahead. He walked in through the front doors with the force of habit and command, flashing his ID to security, who immediately started to fumble into protocol. "I'm here to see Dakota Springs." The receptionist blinked twice. "She's in a meeting, but I can let her know you are here." Tell her it's important. He didn't explain why. He wasn't sure he could. 10 minutes later, she appeared at the end of the hallway, walking toward him. And once again, Nate felt like the air around him got quieter. Dakota was wearing a plum-colored dress suit, sharp and elegant, paired with muted heels and a hint of gold jewelry. She looked like she was heading to church or court. Refined, unshakable, almost soft. But not for him. When her eyes met his, she didn't smile. He did, just slightly. He couldn't help it. "You're overdressed for sabotage," she said dryly. He smiled more. "And you're overdressed for work." She crossed her arms. "You didn't come here to talk dress code." "No," he admitted. "I came because he needed a reason to see her. Because she was stuck in his head like a song he didn't want to skip. Because he didn't know how to want someone without needing control. But with her, he couldn't find it. Because I'm rethinking the merger language around co-ownership," he said instead. She tilted her head, not buying it, but willing to let him play. "Is that all?" Nate hesitated. "For now." A pause. Dakota exhaled slowly. "Then let's talk. But this time, I call the shots." "Fine." She walked past him, heading for the conference room. He followed, unsure whether he was chasing a deal or a decision he wasn't ready to admit. The conference room at Springs Biotech was smaller than Whitmore's. No skyline views, no imported glass table. Just clean lines, warm lighting, and a whiteboard filled with molecular formulas behind Dakota's chair. It suited her. Quietly powerful. No flash. Just substance. She gestured for him to sit. He did. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Dakota opened her notebook and tapped her pen once against the edge of the table. Then she looked at him, really looked. Her voice was calm, but not soft. "Why are you really here?" Nate sat back, jaw tight. "I told you." "No," she cut him off gently. "That was the answer you gave, not the truth." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. His voice dropped a level. "I'm not in the habit of explaining myself." "You don't have to." Her gaze didn't waver. "But if you want to work with me, really work with me, you'll stop pretending this is only about patents and percentages." He said nothing. Dakota set her pen down. "You don't trust people. I get it. I'm not asking you to. But don't insult both of us by playing this 1 foot in, 1 foot out game." His eyes flashed. "You think this is a game to me?" "No," she said. "I think it scares you." The silence hit like a slap. Nate stood, pacing to the far wall. He kept his back to her. "You don't know what it's like to build something big," he said. "To have your name on everything, your face tied to every decision, every failure. And then have the one person you let in weaponize it." Dakota stood too, not approaching, just standing steady, grounded. "You think I don't know betrayal?" she said. "You think I haven't watched people underestimate me, use me, assume they could outmaneuver me because I was young, because I was a woman, because I'm black? Don't test my history, Nate. Just because I don't bleed in boardrooms doesn't mean I haven't bled." That stopped him. He turned, and for the first time, his mask slipped entirely. No deflection, no posturing, just a man, flawed, cornered by his own fear, and standing in front of someone who saw too much. "I don't know how to want you without it turning into something I can't control," he said. Quiet, brutal, honest. Dakota's voice softened, just a little. "Then don't control it. Just choose it. Or walk away. But don't come here chasing mergers when what you're really afraid of is feeling something again." A long pause. They stared at each other. No more tactics, just tension and truth, and something dangerously close to vulnerability. Finally, he stepped forward, just enough to close the space between them. "I don't know how to trust you," he said. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Dakota replied. "I'm asking you not to lie to yourself." The words hung in the air between them, thick and electric. "I'm asking you not to lie to yourself." Dakota didn't move. She stood there, hands loose at her sides, steady as ever, not reaching for him, not backing down. Nate felt the room close in, not with pressure, but with possibility. It terrified him. He needed to think, to breathe, to retreat, so he nodded. Once, not out of agreement, out of surrender. "I'll be in touch," he said, already turning. Dakota didn't stop him, didn't call out, didn't chase. She just watched him walk away, and that wrecked him more than anything. The elevator ride down felt like a free fall. He didn't remember walking through the lobby or telling his driver where to go. He barely registered the city streets, the honking cabs, the buzz of a world that didn't care if Nate Whitmore was losing his grip. He was used to pressure. He could handle scandals, press leaks, hostile takeovers, but not her. Dakota didn't attack, she saw, and being seen, truly seen, wasn't something he was built for. Back in his penthouse, the silence was louder than usual. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the skyline, watching the lights blur like thoughts he couldn't pin down. She had gotten under his skin. She hadn't just challenged him, she unsettled him. With calm, with truth. With the ability to look him in the eye and ask him to be real. And he hated how much he wanted to give it to her. But how could he? After everything. The betrayal, the damage, the way his ex-wife had turned intimacy into ammunition. He was supposed to be untouchable. That was the deal he made with himself. But Dakota cracked him. Not with seduction, not with power, with honesty. And now he had to make a decision he hadn't made in years. Risk the fall, or walk away and live with the void. Back at Whitmore Tower, Nate was physically present, but somewhere else entirely. He stood in his office, shoulders squared, suit crisp as ever. But something had shifted. His usual precision had turned brittle. Each order he gave was shorter, clipped. His eyes didn't settle. They scanned, flicked, darted, like he was trying to stay ahead of a feeling closing in. His assistant knocked once, poking her head in. "You've got that strategy review at 10, then lunch with legal. And at 3. She paused. He didn't look up. She cleared her throat. "Meeting with Miss Springs." The name hit the air like static. Nate's fingers twitched. Just slightly. He didn't flinch exactly, but the assistant noticed the pause. And he noticed that she noticed. He straightened. "Reschedule." "But sir, I need to go out of town, handle something personally." He didn't offer more. He didn't wait for her reaction. He just turned away, back to the window. Dismissed. The Whitmore family estate sat on the edge of upstate New York, surrounded by land and long memories. It had been years since Nate stepped foot on the property. Years since he let himself be small enough to come home. The kitchen was warm, fragrant, with cornbread and roasted something. His grandmother stood at the stove, stirring with rhythm, wrapped in an old apron that had seen generations of heartbreak and recovery. She turned when he walked in. "You look thinner," she said. "You look exactly the same," he said. "Liar." He kissed her cheek, trying to hide the smile. She didn't let him. Her eyes, those ageless, coal-bright eyes, cut straight through the business armor he'd worn all week. "What's her name?" she asked without missing a beat. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Grandmother, your eyes are still sharp. I raised 4 boys and buried 1 husband. I know the look, Nathaniel." He gave her a slow nod. "I wish I had listened, all those years ago. So that's why you came running back." "I'm not running." She turned then, giving him the kind of look that held truth like a knife between the ribs. "So why are you here?" He hesitated, then, softer. "I needed to see your beautiful face." "Good call," she said, grabbing a plate. "But I don't believe a damn word of it. Come eat." He followed her to the table like he used to as a boy, back when the world still made a little bit of sense. As they ate, she didn't push, just let him sit in the quiet. But eventually, she said, "She get through?" He didn't answer. She smirked. "Figured. It's complicated. It's not, she said. You're just scared it's real, and you don't know how to be real without feeling like you're bleeding. He looked down at his plate. Then, almost a whisper, she scares the hell out of me. His grandmother nodded. Good. That means she's worth it. Dakota noticed the reschedule immediately. She wasn't surprised. Nate Whitmore didn't cancel meetings. He controlled them, curated them, and when he couldn't do that, he vanished. Her assistant paused outside her office door. Whitmore postponed. No reason given. Dakota didn't react. Not outwardly. She nodded once. Reschedule if he circles back. But inside, something shifted. Not anger, not disappointment, just clarity. She'd touched something in him. Not to wound, but to wake. And now he had to decide if he'd live with it or walk away from it. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't check in. Dakota Springs didn't beg for presents. She made her absence felt. Back at the family estate, Nate spent the next 2 days doing nothing he could quantify. He sat on the back porch with a half-read book in his lap. Walked the woods behind the property, retracing steps from childhood. His grandmother didn't press. She just watched him with that knowing stillness of a woman who'd seen love, fracture, and reform over generations. She caught him staring out the window once, late afternoon. You thinking about her again? She asked casually, cleaning green beans at the sink. I don't know what she wants from me, he muttered. She told you. She wants the truth, not perfection. He shook his head. That's a risk. His grandmother snorted. You made $1 billion on a flu vaccine the government almost passed on. Don't talk to me about risk. By the 4th day, it was worse. Dakota wasn't reaching out. She wasn't pulling. And that was the thing that gnawed at him. Everyone else chased him. Or played nice, or played weak. Dakota did none of the above. She waited without waiting. Held the space without apology. She was her own center of gravity. And if he wasn't careful, she'd leave him in orbit, alone and circling something he never had the courage to claim. The decision hit him quietly, not like a lightning bolt. More like gravity giving up. He stood up from the breakfast table, walked upstairs, packed a bag. His grandmother raised an eyebrow as he passed her in the hall. Going somewhere? I'm going to stop being a coward, he said, adjusting his watch. She nodded once, proud but unsurprised. Tell her I said hi. And if you break her heart, she added, I'll break both your kneecaps. Nate got home just in time for the gala. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Glass chandeliers, black tie formality, champagne passed on silver trays. A sea of donors, executives, and carefully curated charm floated through the space under a vaulted ceiling and curated lighting that made everything glow. Dakota stood near a sculpture installation, radiant in a dark emerald gown with a plunging neckline and structured shoulders that gave her a regal silhouette. Her buzz cut was styled clean, the cobalt streak now replaced with subtle gold shimmer, like a quiet victory. She hadn't expected him to be there. So when she turned and saw Nate Whitmore across the room, standing alone, watching her with unreadable eyes, it struck her. He hadn't just come. He had chosen to be seen again. He crossed the floor like he owned it. No tie, just a tailored black suit, undone at the collar. But the armor was gone. Or maybe it had been left behind with the silence in the woods. He stopped in front of her, looking almost nervous. Dakota, he said. She raised a brow. You clean up well for someone who hides. He gave a slow smile, genuine. You want to dance with a coward? She looked him over once, then extended her hand. I'll take my chances. The dance floor wasn't crowded. A jazz quartet played something soft, slow, and smoky. He pulled her in gently, hand on her back, their bodies close but not pressing. Just enough to feel each other move. For a while, they said nothing. Then quietly, he spoke. I went home. She didn't answer. She just listened. I thought I was avoiding you, he said. But I was avoiding me. For the first time in years, I felt something I couldn't outmaneuver, and it scared the hell out of me. Dakota rested her hand lightly on his shoulder, their steps perfectly in sync. It's okay, she said. That means maybe you're ready to live again. He looked at her full on. No mask, no cold, just Nate. She reached for his hand, gently, slowly, like an offer, not a test. And he let her hold it. Her fingers closed around his. Warm, steady. His thumb brushed the top of hers, unsure at first, then more sure. Like maybe this was the first thing he'd chosen for himself in years. The gala was winding down, the music slower now, the crowd thinner. Laughter had softened to murmurs, and the air was thick with perfume, polished pleasantries, and politics in pearls. Dakota had just slipped away from the dance floor, standing near a gilded marble column, sipping champagne and letting the moment breathe. That's when she heard the voice. So you're the one that finally made him flinch. Dakota turned. A regal woman, dressed in deep violet, with silver accents and eyes that didn't miss a thing, was walking toward her with a cane that looked more like a prop than a necessity. Dakota smiled politely. And you must be. I'm the reason Nathaniel hasn't completely turned into concrete, she said, settling onto the seat beside her. Grandmother Lily. Dakota nodded. I've heard about you. Oh, I imagine you have. But not as much as I've heard about you lately. Dakota's expression stayed composed, but something shifted in her chest. Grandmother Lily leaned slightly closer, voice warm but cutting. My grandson is brilliant. He's strong. He leads without blinking. But that strength comes with stubbornness. He builds walls, like he's afraid the world might see him soft. What he needs, what he's always needed, is someone who doesn't just challenge him. She paused, looking Dakota over slowly, appraising and approving. But someone who'll build him up at the same time. Dakota tilted her head, thoughtful. That takes balance. That takes backbone, Grandmother Lily replied. You've got both. There was a beat of silence before the older woman gave her a knowing smile. So tell me, how long are the two of you going to dance around what's really going on? Dakota chuckled softly, setting her glass down. He's had years to construct those walls. I can't knock them down and expect him to thank me. He has to want the gate open. And when he does, she met Grandmother Lily's gaze. Steady, calm. He has to let me step inside. Lily smiled wide. You're a wise young lady. And an extremely beautiful woman. Now I know why Nate's in love with you. Dakota's lips parted, caught off guard. She held her composure but had to look away for a beat. Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore. Just call me Grandmother Lily. They both smiled. At the end of the evening, as coats were gathered and final handshakes made, Dakota hugged Grandmother Lily. With warmth and something deeper. Recognition. And then Nate appeared. No tie, jacket draped over one shoulder. Eyes locked on Dakota, like she was the only thing that made sense in the room. Did she behave? He asked, nodding at his grandmother. She behaved just fine, Dakota said. Can't say the same for you. He smirked, then cleared his throat. Would you maybe come to the family home for dinner sometime? He asked. Just us. No suits, no contracts, just you and me. Dakota studied him for a moment. No mask, no CEO. Just a man learning how to mean it. She smiled. All right, Nate, let's see what you're like without the armor. The Whitmore family home looked different at night, less like a fortress, more like memory. The porch lights glowed soft and amber, and somewhere in the back, a wind chime stirred in the breeze. Nate opened the front door before she could knock. Dakota stood on the step in a soft charcoal sweater dress and boots. Her makeup was minimal, in the faintest shimmer in the light. Still stunning, still Dakota. But not the courtroom warrior tonight, just the woman. He smiled. Not the practiced one, the real one. You came. You invited me. They stood for a second longer than necessary, neither moving. Come in, he said, stepping aside. The house was warm, lived in. She could see photos on the hallway table, family, some faded, some recent, and the scent of rosemary and garlic drifted in from the kitchen. "You cooked?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "I supervised," Nate replied. "Grandmother Lily handled most of it." Smart man. They ate in the sunroom. No white tablecloths, just wood and candlelight, roasted chicken, sautéed greens, and a bottle of wine he admitted he only picked because the label said bold and complex. "Appropriate," she said, lifting her glass. He laughed, open and unguarded. Later, they sat on the couch in the living room. A fire low in the hearth, a quiet hum between them. Nate turned to her. "I was ready to go the rest of my life numb," he said. "I made peace with it." Dakota didn't interrupt. She waited. "And then you walked into that boardroom in a red suit, with a tie I still think about, and suddenly I was angry at myself. Angry for being frozen that long. Angry that someone could make me feel without permission." She turned toward him, gently. "And now," he reached for her hand, this time with certainty. "Now I want to stop fighting it." The room fell into silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence people shared when everything important had already been said. Nate shifted closer, brushing his thumb across the back of her hand. "I don't want to make this complicated," he said. "But I also don't want to pretend this is casual, because it's not. Not for me." Dakota looked at him, her voice low, grounded. "It's not casual for me either." He moved closer. No sudden movement, no pull, just gravity. His hand cupped her jaw. Slow, deliberate. She leaned in, their foreheads brushing for half a second before their lips met. Tentative at first, then deeper, warmer. It wasn't a kiss built on tension. It wasn't about dominance or power. It was about presence, about choice, about finally letting someone in. When they pulled back, she didn't speak right away. Neither did he. They just sat there, her fingers still tangled in his, a quiet calm between them that felt more intimate than anything either had ever known. Dakota smiled softly. "Well," she said, "now the gate's open." Nate smiled back. "I'm ready to let you step in." Monday morning came with brutal clarity. Gone were the soft edges of Nate's family home. No firelight, no warmth, just fluorescent overheads, spreadsheets, and the familiar bite of steel and glass. Back at Whitmore Tower, Nate sat at the head of the conference table, sleeves crisp, tie tight, voice clipped. Business as usual. Except nothing about him felt usual anymore. When Dakota walked in, sharp in a navy suit with silver accents, and her posture like a blade, they exchanged a glance. Nothing more. No nod, no smile. Just back to corporate protocol. She placed the final merger documents on the table. "These are the updated terms," she said. "They include the ethical oversight language I referenced at the gala. Full transparency reporting for the first 24 months. Independent audit provisions. Oversight committee with shared authority." Nate flipped through the pages in silence. His jaw tightened. "You're pushing too hard," he said flatly. "I'm protecting your legacy." Dakota shot back. "You're slowing down a billion-dollar move with idealistic policies." She blinked. "Just once. And you're proving that control still matters more to you than change." His head snapped up, their eyes locked. "You want to make this a personal crusade? Fine. But don't pretend this is business. This is your guilt playing savior." Dakota stared at him, hurt flickering, but held firm. "No," she said. "This is me drawing a line. You're not afraid of transparency, mate. You're afraid of letting go." He stood, anger rising. "You don't get to stand on a pedestal and call me afraid. And you don't get to pretend courage looks like hiding behind contracts." The room went dead silent. Then she gathered her papers, calm and poised. "I'm done here." And just like that, she walked. The silence after she left was deafening. Nate sat down slowly. He stared at the contract, at her name, at the empty chair across from him. He was shaking, not with anger, with clarity. She wasn't wrong. He'd gone right back into his fortress, slipped into the comfort of control, like armor he didn't want to outgrow. He had opened the gate once, but the moment it got real, the moment it threatened the illusion of invulnerability, he slammed it shut again. He thought of his ex-wife. The way she smiled as she lied. The way she twisted truth into performance. The betrayal that had hollowed him out. But Dakota didn't lie. She told the truth. Every time. And now that truth was gone. Unless he did something about it. He showed up unannounced at Springs Biotech. No press. No legal entourage. Just Nate Whitmore, in a charcoal coat, holding a folder with his signature on it. And a revised contract. The front office looked stunned to see him. They didn't stop him. Dakota's father greeted him with a raised brow and a guarded handshake. "I'm not here to make a deal," Nate said. "I'm here to make this right." When Dakota entered the boardroom and saw him there, her lips pressed into a tight line. He stepped forward, holding out the contract. "These are your terms, as they were, plus more." She frowned. "More?" "A rotating ethics chair, employee-level equity review, external advisory from public health experts. You wanted oversight. I'm giving you power." She stared at him, searching. "In writing?" "In ink," he said. "No loopholes, no fine print." He turned to her father. "Your daughter held me accountable to the kind of leader I should have been all along. This company is better because of her. I owe that to her. And to you." Dakota's father glanced at his daughter, then nodded. He stepped out, leaving them alone. Nate turned to her fully now. "I let one person's betrayal turn me into someone I never wanted to be," he said, voice steady but raw. "You reminded me who I was and who I want to be, with you." Dakota exhaled slowly. She stepped closer. "You finally opened the gate." "I did." She touched his hand. "And this time? Are you going to let me stay inside?" He reached for her fingers. Tangled them with his. "This time I'm not letting go." The press was watching. The deal had gone through. Photos were taken, hands were shaken, statements were released. But the heart of it, the truth of it, wasn't in the headlines. It was in how he showed up. Nate Whitmore stood at the podium inside Springs Biotech, surrounded by board members, analysts, and a dozen media reps. But his eyes were only on one person. Dakota stood near the edge of the stage, arms folded, sharp as ever in a graphite gray power suit. She looked cool, controlled, beautiful. He spoke into the mic. "I want to acknowledge someone who changed the trajectory of this merger and my company." The room stilled. She challenged every assumption. She raised every uncomfortable question. And she did it not to stop us, but to strengthen us. She forced accountability, and in doing so, reminded us who we're supposed to be. He paused. "Dakota Springs is not just part of this merger. She's the reason it's worth believing in." Cameras snapped. Dakota didn't move. But her lips twitched, just a little, just enough. A week later, back at Whitmore Tower, she entered the boardroom for the first time as a partner. No one missed the symbolism. Same floor, same glass, same view. But this time, she wasn't a guest. She belonged. Her office sat directly across the hall from Nate's. Clean lines, minimalist design, her signature all over it. Late that afternoon, he stepped into her space. Tie loosened, eyes softer. She looked up from a document. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore?" He closed the door behind him. Slowly. "I need a moment." "You usually do." He walked over to her desk, leaned in slightly. "Everything looks different now." She raised a brow. "Because I worked here?" "Because you're here." Dakota stood, walked around to meet him. The sunlight hit her just right, casting a faint glow across her skin. "You're not the same man I met in this building." He shook his head. "No, I'm not. You didn't tame me, Dakota. You reminded me how to feel, how to trust, how to choose." She stepped closer, close enough to hear the change in his breath. And what are you choosing now? His hand touched her cheek. You. And then, finally, he kissed her. No performance, no hesitation. This time, with nothing held back. The boardroom faded. The world could wait. Because here, in the space where their war began, they found their peace. Together. The end. Thanks for listening to Green Tea Tale. Help our channel to grow with likes, shares, and subscribe.